Are you ready to get hairy? The Goldmaster series by Digital Eclipse is back. After a quite successful chapter on Karateka, this time it focuses on the history of Llamasoft and, of course, Jeff Minter. For those not familiar, the English developer is one of the very first true indies to develop his own language in gaming, releasing a series of unique titles through the 80s and early 90s with an instantly recognizable style and gameplay. So let's dive into the history of Llamasoft and see if it's worth your hairy money. Llamasoft, the Jeff Minter story, is an interactive documentary, much like Atari 50 and yeah, the making of Karateka, where you can watch interviews with historians and journalists about the history of Jeff Minter, and of course, interviews with Jeff himself too, look at the cover art of his games, his notes, the reviews, the newsletters, and of course, play the games. Indeed, there are about 42 games by Jeff Minter to be played, ranging from his early releases on the VIC-20 and Commodore 64 to the more recent PC and Atari ST titles. Divided in 4 chapters, we will look at Jeff's introduction to programming, and his early efforts in developing games, and of course his inspirations. Then we will see the development of his clear identifiable style, which he goes on to refer to as neo-retro, and the start of a successful business with Llamasoft. After taking a look at the biggest years of Llamasoft, we'll see the decline of the company in the 90s, along with some of Jeff's failed attempts at developing for some failed consoles. Navigating through the various options, we get a lot of Jeff's comments on what was going on at the time, again mostly in the 80s, along with a lot of pictures of him at events, gaming fairs, and of course with his favorite sheep and llamas. I mean, that's his main thing. The interactive documentary also looks at a couple of interesting events, for example the little drama on Zap about the review of Mama Llama, which was definitely peak Minter weird, I would say. Jeff seems still quite amused by the whole thing, and his comments do add a lot of color to the overall narrative. I'm also very happy about the opportunity to finally take a look at the beautiful drawings and art drawn by Stina Lund for Jeff Minter's games, and of course the amazing collection of llamas, camels, sheep, and all the weird animals that are in Llamasoft's games. They are so beautiful that they almost make me miss the old print button. You remember that in some multimedia titles from the 90s where you could print whatever was on your screen? I would love to have that, because I would print them all and hang them on my walls, but yeah, what can you do? I'll have to ask Digital Eclipse to add it in a patch or something, perhaps. There is an interesting little part focusing on the Connex Multisystem, which was a failed console made in the UK, which, despite the best efforts from Connex, which was basically a maker of joysticks and peripherals, would never see the light of day. So we get to play a sort of beta version of what would have been the classic Jeff Minter's Attack of the Mutant Camels for the Connex console. That's quite a lovely bit of obscure gaming history there. But the history through the 90s gets a bit rarefied, as we mostly get comments taken from the old Llamasoft website and a few games here and there as Jeff's production went a little bit dry. Of course, the biggest classics from Jeff Minter are here and present, and in various different versions. Of course, we mentioned Attack of the Mutant Camels, but there's everything. So there are definitely enough versions of Grid Runner to play that you can spend all day. What I'm a bit sad about is that the compilation doesn't really include any of the more recent releases by Llamasoft, since this is a case of a developer that is still, active in the scene. For example, it would have been interesting to see Grid Runner Revolution, which is definitely not that young anyway, it's 14 years old, or Space Giraffe, which is also 15 years old, and this true sequel to Tempest 2000 that not really many have played. It would have been interesting to include it in the compilation as a sort of juxtaposition to the original games by Jeff Minter from the 80s and the 90s, so to see sort of evolution up to the present day. But unfortunately no, we do get a remake of Grid Runner, which I believe was developed by Digital Eclipse, but that's it. It's no big deal, but it would have been interesting. As a whole, I think everyone will walk away from Llamasoft at the history of Jeff Minter feeling quite satisfied. This is another great work by Digital Eclipse. They even tweak a little bit the old interface of the Goldmaster series to allow Minter's identity to shine through with his own music and light show in the background. As a kid who did grow up on some of Jeff's games, I did remember playing both Attack of the Mutant Camels, which was one of the weirdest things that I've seen, and also his slideshow titles for Commodore 64, this was a great little reminder of how different and weird these games were compared to anything else that was on the Commodore 64, which, you know, still housed quite a bit of weird stuff if we really have to be honest about it. Overall, I think perhaps the Jeff Minter story feels slightly less emotional than the making of Karateka, but then again, there is no father-son relationship, and yes, we can really fault Jeff or Digital Eclipse for that, of course. So this is a great way to learn about one of the true original weirdos of gaming. Of course, I mean this in the most beloved way possible. And we hope to have this great man with us for many years to come. Here's to more hairy years.
Grid Runner, and I'll tell you how much they enjoyed it. I mean, the fact that they still remember it after all these years is one thing, but the actual seek you out and tell you about it is entirely another.
So Voxel Smash gives Llamasoft the Jeff Minter story a 8.5 out of 10. This is another excellent work by Digital Eclipse, giving users a possibility to not only learn about gaming history passively, but also actively look and play those games, providing the best historical context possible, and also making them as accessible as possible, which, in the case of Jeff Minter, is definitely easier said than done. So, time to get hairy.